Prominent NRCC donor Anton Lazarro was arrested on underage sex trafficking charges, which includes 5 counts of sex trafficking a minor, 1 count of attempt, and 3 counts of obstruction of justice. The DCCC is now publicly calling for the NRCC to condemn the actions of the donor and return the $10,000 they've received from him. Seems simple enough.
Yeah, right.
Alyssa, what's your take on this?
I mean, that's the easiest thing. In the grand scheme of the NRCC budget, $10,000 isn't even that much money. But because of the egregious nature of what he was engaging in, the easiest thing to do is give the money back. But one thing I would note, this Anton Lazarro guy, in addition to being, a sex trafficker potentially, he's also a Twitter troll. So in recent days, I noticed that he was attacking some of the more libertarian conservatives, including Thomas Massey and Justin Amash on Twitter. In both, people who are pretty quick on a reply ended up just responding to him with the article of his arrest, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, and both party committees love nothing more than when the other party committee's donor, if they've given more than $1,000 or so, gets caught up in some scandal, and if it's some sex trafficking thing, then they're that much more excited about it, and they're going to do everything they can to rub the faces of their opponents in it. And in this case, the NRCC may end up actually capitulating and giving the money back or sending it somewhere else. I've noticed that, tell me if you think I'm reading this wrong, that the NRCC has been a lot more firm, I would put it, than the DCCC in keeping this kind of money and just letting the news cycle move on. I don't think they'll keep this particular money, but in general, the DCCC seems much more, you can push them around a lot more easily.
Well, and I think that was actually more circumstantial, just in the fact that Harvey Weinstein had given tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars to the D-Trip and some other. They ended up giving it up after significant pressure, as did Hillary Clinton. So they had some of the most high-profile sexual offenders as donors. So I think that's why there's always been quicker pressure. This guy's sort of a nobody, but I also, again, it's $10,000. Just give it back.
I just wonder, is there a line? Is it, okay, anyone who commits any crime, if they've donated, then that money needs to be given back? Or is it specific crimes that we say, no, this is the type of crime that if that person gives money, then that money has to go back?
The bar is how much public pressure there is. That's really the bar. They could be a serial killer, but if nobody notices that their name's in the FEC record, then they'll be like, that's fine. Yeah,
I do think there's a specific place for sexual crimes in nature that those tend to get the most attention and the most public pushback. You know what? I think you could probably have a drug offense and people wouldn't care particularly about if you contributed to either of the political parties. But this is one that I think it's so emotional for folks. There's not a lot of tolerance for keeping the money.
Right.
Well, that's kind of the problem with it, right? Is that there's no real set policy. It's just, well, if the public finds out, then I guess we'll do the right thing. But otherwise, there's no actual rule or just even an ethics on this.
Right, and the bar is different for the amount of money that you give. If you give millions, then your bar for misbehavior is much higher. If you give $10,000, then you rack up a bunch of parking tickets, and if it causes problems for the party, then they're going to jettison you.
Well, and that's my prediction on this one. I think the party is going to abandon old Anton pretty quickly because in the grand scheme of political spending, $10,000 is just not that much money. Maybe they'd put up a bit more of a fight if we were talking in the hundreds of thousands, but that's not the case here.
Right. Then he's innocent until proven guilty. Everybody deserves their due process. Everybody who's given $1 million deserves their due process. But yeah, so we'll have more Rising for you right after this.